Have you ever felt that strange emptiness right in the middle of a busy day? You go through the motions, emails answered, bills paid, maybe even some laughter shared with friends. But once the noise fades, a quiet question lingers. Is this all there is? It's almost embarrassing to admit because on the outside everything seems fine. But deep down, many of us carry the uneasy suspicion that something essential is missing. Picture a man who has checked every box society handed him: a stable job, a decent apartment, a partner who cares. From the outside, he looks successful. Yet every morning, as he stares at his reflection in the mirror, he feels an unshakable fatigue, not of the body but of the soul. It's not depression, not quite boredom, but a dull ache whispering that his life lacks direction. Have you ever recognized a similar whisper inside yourself? We live in an age that praises efficiency, productivity, and visible achievement. But rarely do we stop to ask whether those achievements actually serve a deeper purpose. The uncomfortable truth is this: we can be admired, wealthy, and outwardly successful, yet still live lives that are hollow. And what if, just what if, that hollowness is the real failure? Not the missed promotion, not the broken relationship, not the bank account running low, but waking up every day with no guiding why. This is where Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist who survived the concentration camps, offers us a piercing insight. He argued that the greatest human drive is not pleasure or power, but meaning. Without meaning, even comfort feels empty. With meaning, even suffering can be endured. So let me ask you directly: what sustains you when the applause stops, when the money dries up, when no one is watching? If the answer feels unclear, maybe you've stumbled upon the deeper question this video is about. Stay with me, because in the next few minutes we'll explore not just how to recognize this hidden failure, but how to transform it into a compass for real living. And before we go further, tell me in the comments, have you ever felt that quiet ache? That suspicion that your life, despite looking fine, might be drifting without purpose? And if this reflection already resonates with you, hit like and subscribe, because what follows might just shift the way you see not only failure, but the meaning of your life itself. Imagine for a moment that failure is not the stumble you took at work, not the relationship that ended, not the opportunity that slipped through your fingers. Imagine instead that the greatest failure is living an entire life without ever uncovering why you're here. What if the true tragedy is not falling short of success, but never daring to define success beyond society's shallow checklist? Close your eyes and picture two possible futures. In the first, you achieve everything you've been taught to chase: the career, the possessions, the recognition. Yet each victory feels strangely flat, like eating food without taste. You keep moving, but the hunger never fades. In the second future, your external accomplishments may be fewer, maybe even modest. But each choice you make carries the weight of significance, because it aligns with a purpose greater than yourself. Even ordinary days feel alive, anchored in meaning. Which of these futures feels closer to where you are right now? And which one would you rather live? This is where the imagination becomes powerful, because the way you see your possible future shapes the steps you take today. If you can start to picture yourself living with a clear sense of why, even if you can't define it perfectly yet, you've already begun moving away from emptiness and toward meaning. The beauty of Frankl's insight is that meaning is not something handed to us. It's discovered often in the midst of suffering or silence. We don't need to wait for the perfect job, partner, or opportunity to appear. Instead, we can ask, what is life demanding of me right here, right now? Think about it. Think, how different would your mornings feel if, instead of waking up with that vague weight of emptiness, you opened your eyes knowing that even small tasks carried a thread of purpose? How would your relationships change if you treated every encounter as an opportunity to embody what matters most to you? So here's the invitation. Imagine your life not as a checklist of accomplishments, but as a story being written. A story where failure is not about falling, but about refusing to seek meaning. What chapter are you writing today? We've been trained to believe that failure means falling short of visible goals, losing a job, missing a deadline, or ending up with less than what we hoped for. But let's pause and consider something unsettling. What if success itself, as society defines it, can become a kind of trap. Think of the countless people who reach the summit of their ambitions only to feel emptier than ever. The executive who finally buys the dream house but spends sleepless nights staring at the ceiling. The artist who achieves recognition, yet feels detached from the very work that brought fame. The parent who sacrifices everything for their children, but once the nest is empty, finds no center left to hold on to. On the surface, these lives look enviable, but beneath, they reveal a silent collapse, a life without meaning disguised as success. Here's the disruptive insight. The danger is not in failing to meet society's standards, but in meeting them and discovering they never truly mattered. Success without purpose is just another kind of failure, only more deceptive because it hides behind applause. This truth is uncomfortable because it confronts one of our most cherished beliefs, that if we simply work harder, achieve more, or accumulate enough, we will feel fulfilled. But history, literature, and psychology all whisper the same warning. Without purpose, achievement is hollow. The ladder leaned against the wrong wall doesn't matter how high you climb. So, what if the real measure of failure is not external but internal? Not about whether you've gained enough recognition, but whether your days reflect what you deeply value. Not whether you've won applause, but whether you've lived in alignment with meaning. This rupture with normality invites us to stop asking, "What can I get out of life?" and instead ask, "What is life asking of me?" That shift dismantles the illusion of success as we've been taught to see it, and opens the door to something deeper, authentic purpose. Have you ever had a moment when something you thought would bring happiness left you strangely unsatisfied? That moment wasn't failure. It was an invitation to redefine success itself. When Viktor Frankl wrote Man's Search for Meaning, he was not theorizing from the comfort of an office. He was speaking from the depths of humanity's darkest valley, the concentration camps of the Second World War. Stripped of family, freedom, and dignity, he witnessed men wasting away not only from hunger but from despair. Yet amid the brutality, Frankl discovered a paradoxical truth. The ones who endured were often not the strongest or the healthiest, but those who held onto a reason to live. Frankl's insight was disarmingly simple. Human beings are not destroyed by suffering itself, but by suffering without meaning. He noticed that even in the camp, when everything was taken away, there remained a space of freedom, the freedom to choose one's attitude, to decide whether to give up or to hold on to purpose. That sliver of freedom, that insistence on meaning, was often the difference between spiritual survival and collapse. This perspective challenges much of modern psychology, which often emphasizes pleasure, achievement, or power as the central motivators of life. Frankl turned this upside down, declaring that the true human drive is not comfort or control, but significance. We do not simply crave happiness. We crave to know why we exist, to feel that our lives matter beyond ourselves. And isn't that what many of us are secretly starving for today? Despite unprecedented comfort, technology, and opportunity, countless people drift through life with an inner void. Frankl would say this is not a crisis of success, but a crisis of meaning. The brilliance of his message is that meaning is not reserved for the extraordinary. It can be found in a mother raising her child with patience, in a worker giving honest effort to a task, in someone choosing integrity when no one is watching. In each act, no matter how small, lies the possibility of transcendence, if we see it as part of something greater. So when we hear Frankl's voice across time, it is not abstract philosophy. It is the lived wisdom of a man who proved that even in hell, meaning can shine. And if meaning can survive there, what excuse do we have to live without it here? If meaning is so essential, why do so many of us live without it? The answer often lies in invisible patterns, habits of thought and behavior that quietly erode our sense of purpose. One of the most common is distraction. Our lives are filled with endless notifications, deadlines, and routines that keep us busy but rarely fulfilled. We confuse activity with direction, mistaking constant motion for genuine progress. But like a hamster running in its wheel, we can spend years expending energy without ever moving closer to what matters. Another hidden pattern is comparison. We measure our worth against curated snapshots of others, careers, relationships, bodies, lifestyles. But this constant evaluation blinds us to our unique path. Comparison is a thief not only of joy, but of meaning, because it seduces us into chasing someone else's definition of success. Then there's avoidance. Deep down, many people sense the void of purposelessness, but instead of facing it, they numb it with consumption, scrolling, shopping, drinking, working late. These strategies offer temporary relief, but like painkillers, they treat symptoms without addressing the cause. The ache returns stronger than before. Finally, there is fear. To seek meaning often requires courage. Courage to confront uncomfortable questions. Courage to disappoint others' expectations. Courage to live differently. Fear whispers that it is safer to keep drifting, to stay within the familiar patterns of survival. And so, many people do, until years pass, and the silent regret of an unlived life begins to surface. What makes these patterns dangerous is their subtlety. They don't announce themselves as failures. They disguise themselves as normal life. That is why so many wake up one day with the unsettling realization that, despite years of effort, they have been walking in circles. But here's the good news. Once you see these patterns, you can begin to disrupt them. Meaning does not appear in a flash of inspiration. It grows as we resist distraction, comparison, avoidance, and fear, and instead lean into responsibility, authenticity, and courage. So let me ask you, which of these invisible patterns has the strongest hold on your life right now? And what would it feel like to confront it, not with guilt, but with the conviction that you were meant for more than drifting? Sometimes a single phrase can shift an entire perspective. It doesn't take a lecture or a book, just a few words that pierce through the noise of our busy minds and settle deep inside. Let's pause here to distill what we've been exploring into sharp, memorable truths that you can carry with you. Failure is not falling, it is rising without reason. Success without meaning is another form of failure. Comfort can numb you, but only purpose can fulfill you. When you stop asking, "What can I get from life?" and start asking, "What is life asking of me?" That's when direction begins. Avoidance may delay the pain, but only courage creates transformation. Comparison steals not only your joy but also your unique calling. Busyness is not purpose. You can fill your days and still empty your soul. Suffering becomes unbearable only when it feels meaningless. Notice how these are not just nice-sounding sentences. They are invitations. Each one demands reflection. Each one asks whether you are living reactively, drifting along with invisible patterns, or whether you are deliberately shaping a life anchored in meaning. Philosophers and poets across centuries have understood this. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Dostoevsky claimed that a man who has a why to live can bear almost any how. And Frankl echoed both, proving with his own survival that meaning is not a luxury, it is oxygen. The challenge then is simple yet difficult, to take one of these truths and let it interrupt your daily routine. Write it down. Repeat it when your mind wanders. Hold it in front of you when fear, distraction, or comparison threatens to pull you away. Because a phrase is just words, until you let it become a compass. Which of these truths will you choose as your compass today? Here's a paradox worth sitting with. The more we chase happiness directly, the more it slips through our fingers. But when we turn our attention toward purpose, toward something larger than ourselves, happiness often finds us along the way. Think about it. How many times have you achieved something you thought would finally make you happy, only to feel the thrill fade almost immediately? The new job title, the purchase, the recognition, all of it exciting for a moment yet strangely fleeting. That's because happiness is not meant to be hunted. It is meant to be a byproduct. And the byproduct of what? Of living with meaning. Here lies the paradox. Suffering and joy are not opposites. Sometimes the most meaningful moments of life are also the most painful. A mother staying up all night with her sick child. An artist struggling for years to finish a work that matters. A volunteer spending weekends in uncomfortable conditions to serve strangers. These moments are heavy, yes, but they are also radiant. They reveal that true fulfillment doesn't come from avoiding struggle, but from finding a why that makes the struggle worthwhile. Our culture often sells us a false duality. comfort versus suffering, success versus failure, happiness versus pain. But life is more mysterious than that. Meaning weaves them together. It takes the raw material of joy and pain, success and failure, and forges them into something transcendent. The philosopher Søren Kierkegaard once said that life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. Looking back, we often see that our deepest growth came not from ease, but from endurance guided by some sense of purpose. So here's the question. Are you willing to embrace the paradox? Are you willing to stop chasing happiness as the goal and instead pursue meaning, even if it asks you to endure discomfort, sacrifice, or uncertainty? Because the irony is this: those who seek purpose often find joy along the way. Those who chase joy directly often end up empty. The paradox of purpose is simple but not easy. Fulfillment hides on the far side of sacrifice. The question is, will you dare to walk there? Let's imagine what life feels like when it is infused with purpose. Picture waking up in the morning with a quiet certainty that your day matters, not because it will bring applause, but because it connects to something greater than yourself. Even ordinary tasks take on a different texture. Washing dishes, sending emails, driving to work, none of it feels empty, because you know it belongs to a story bigger than convenience. The reward of purpose is not always dramatic. It is often subtle, but profound. A deep sense of alignment. Instead of drifting, you feel directed. Instead of asking endlessly, "What do I want?" you begin to ask, "What is needed from me?" And that simple shift turns life into an offering rather than a chase. Emotionally, purpose brings resilience. When you face setbacks, and you will, they don't crush you the way they once did. You may stumble, but meaning acts like a net, catching you before despair pulls you under. Think about it. When your life has a clear why, even pain becomes bearable, because you know it is endured for the sake of something that matters. Relationally, purpose draws you out of yourself. It expands your focus beyond your own anxieties and frustrations, directing your attention towards serving, building, contributing. This doesn't erase personal struggles, but it frames them differently. You stop obsessing over the question, "Am I enough?" and start living into the question, "What can I give?" And yes, there is also a practical reward. People with a sense of purpose often find greater clarity in decision-making. They waste less energy chasing what doesn't matter. They cultivate patience, perseverance, and integrity, the very qualities that make long-term success possible. In this way, purpose becomes not only spiritually sustaining but also practically empowering. But perhaps the greatest reward is this: peace. Not the fragile peace that comes from avoiding problems, but the steady peace of knowing that even when life is messy, your story has weight. You are not drifting, you are anchored. So let me ask you, if your days were guided by a clear sense of why, what would change first? Your work, your relationships, or perhaps the quiet way you carry yourself through the world? To bring all of this together, let's ground the reflection in a simple but profound framework. Viktor Frankl described 3 main pathways through which meaning can be discovered: through work, through love, and through suffering. These are not abstract ideas. They are the concrete arenas where life invites us to respond. The first is work, or what we create. This doesn't only mean our jobs, it means any contribution we bring into the world. Writing a poem, raising a child, building a business, planting a garden, all are ways of leaving an imprint. Work asks, "What will I give to life that outlives me?" The second is love, or what we receive. Meaning often arrives most powerfully through relationship, when we give ourselves fully to another person, when we see their uniqueness, when we allow ourselves to be transformed by connection. Love asks, "Who do I choose to see, cherish, and serve beyond myself?" The third is suffering, or what we endure. Life inevitably brings pain, loss, and limitation. But Frankl insists that even suffering can be meaningful if we face it with dignity, courage, and an openness to growth. Suffering asks, "How will I carry this weight in a way that honors life itself?" This triad, work, love, suffering, creates a compass. It doesn't provide easy answers, but it offers direction. Whenever we feel lost, we can ask, Am I creating? Am I loving? Am I enduring with courage? Somewhere in those questions lies the thread of meaning. Philosophy and psychology converge here. Aristotle spoke of telos, the end or purpose toward which every life moves. Nietzsche declared that he who has a why to live can bear almost any how. Frankl lived both, proving that meaning is not a luxury of the fortunate. It is the lifeline of the human spirit. So here's the practice. Tonight, before you sleep, ask yourself which of these three paths is calling you most right now. Do you need to create something, nurture someone, or face your suffering differently? Your answer may not be perfect, but it will be honest. And honesty is the first step toward purpose. So here we are, standing at the edge of a hard but liberating truth. The greatest failure is not to fall short of success, but to live without purpose. Every distraction, every comparison, every restless chase after happiness dissolves once we recognize that meaning, not comfort, not applause, is what sustains us. This is not a message of despair. It is a message of possibility. Because purpose is not something reserved for the extraordinary few. It is available to anyone willing to ask the right questions. It begins the moment you stop asking, "What do I want from life?" and start asking, "What is life asking of me?" And once you dare to ask that, something begins to shift. Your failures no longer define you. They refine you. Your successes no longer enslave you. They serve you. Even your suffering is no longer wasted, because it becomes part of a story that matters. So let this be your invitation. Do not wait for the perfect moment, the perfect clarity, the perfect opportunity. Begin where you are. Look at your work, your love, your suffering, and ask where meaning might already be calling you. Then take one step toward answering that call, however small, however humble. Because in the end, what will matter is not how high you climbed on society's ladder, but whether your days added weight to your soul. Did you live as a consumer of comfort or as a contributor to life? Did you drift or did you dare to anchor yourself in meaning? Now, I want to hear from you. Share in the comments. What gives your life meaning right now? Or where are you still searching for it? Let this be more than a video. Let it be the beginning of a conversation, a community of people refusing to settle for hollow success. And if this message resonated with you, if you felt even a spark of recognition, then like this video, subscribe, and join us on this path of reflection. Not because it's easy, but because it's worth it. The true failure is living without purpose. The true victory is choosing again and again to live with one. The choice, as always, is yours.